My name is Mugdim Kuric. Basically, we know each other, but I'll introduce myself to the rest. I was born in former Yugoslavia in Belgrade, actually almost 42 years ago. Lived there for first part of my life, where when I was 7 years old, my father had the opportunity to work in the United States as a diplomat. So I was able to live in the States for 4 years. Afterwards, we came back, and as everybody knows, the tragic situation and war in former Yugoslavia was a way, that things that happened, and we had to move away. I started living in the Netherlands since 1994, and basically since 1994 I've been living here in the Netherlands. So it's almost been 26 years. Actually, I grew up here. I went to high school, I studied international business and management. Nowadays, I'm married. I have 2 kids here. So basically, this is my home. As being born in former Yugoslavia, my parents also come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm also linked to the country where my parents come from, but I admire and respect, let's say, the former Yugoslavia as before. And I don't like war, and I hate the hatred and stuff that happened there. And I hope we always can, we live in peace and be together. So it's quite a also tragic situation what happened there. But looking nowadays, after, let's say, 26 years, people are faced with a lot of stuff and things. Especially the situation now here with the virus, COVID-19 virus and things. So it's quite tragic. I don't know.
Speak to, you said you studied international business and you focused on supply chain management. So what kind of encouraged that decision to study supply chain? What motivated you to get into that sector?
Well, basically, honestly said, since my youth and stuff like that, I was interested in trade and international business, probably because of the way that I grew up, from moving from country to country, seeing things. Definitely English, as I would say, I feel like it's my mother language and my mother tongue. So basically, I think these things had some influences, and I do like things, new trends and things moving. So maybe it was somehow my destiny, and other side, a lot of interest, in movement of goods from A to B. And, I went to these, let's say, when you're entering the college and university, and you have these, introduction weeks where people are saying, okay, we have 2-3 different directions we can go. You can go for finance. I'm good with numbers, but I find it boring, honestly said. Marketing is cool. I love that. I mean, I believe I'm a commercial minded. I have a commercial mindset. But when I went to the introduction for logistics, the university teacher, told us logistics is movement from A to B in the most efficient way, and things being important to the fact that it's linked to geography, politics, and let's say weather or geographical positions. I started thinking, okay, these things are challenging and interesting, and that's why probably logistics is now not even nowadays interesting for me, because it challenges you every day, like it's in daily life. And actually, since I graduated, I've been working in logistics for the past 16 years. So I think started off with a multinational, being an international buyer for Sun Microsystems for electronic parts. Afterwards, I moved to a shipping company where I worked for a few years for forwarding and let's say carrier logistics, so movement of containers. I worked for the APL, which is now part of CMA CGM. And then afterwards, I worked for some trading companies. So I moved from a service providing company to a more in-house expertise and and understanding how logistics works. And that's something what I've been doing for the past 10 years. And during these 10 years, what I've been doing, working for trading companies, moving goods, all around the world where you have to source and produce goods. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I like this situation and position where you acquainted knowledge, learned a lot of people in the logistics world, you understand how things move. So this gives good added value, basically to the, let's say, schooling and stuff like that. But it's an ever-changing job. I mean, this logistics sector is quite interesting, and I'm still happy with the choice.
I think a lot of people don't realize it's kind of like the hidden, the secret industry that affects everything. And I think when you say that it's extremely challenging and you're dealing with interesting things all the time, I think nothing demonstrates that more than the current situation that the world is facing. I mean,
Definitely,
the impact
definitely.
of logistics
Yeah.
by this coronavirus and COVID-19 is unprecedented. So maybe you could speak more on that, on how you've been preparing and what you foresee, how it spans out in the future in general for society, and also in the area of logistics, which you are an expert in.
Yeah. Well, basically, if you want to say how I've been preparing, of course, I've been aware of the situation since January, and once the breakout has happened in China, when China went on lockdown and stuff like that. And basically, from that point of view, of course, my company did not have any shipments ready and being prepared in Asia, but we do import goods from China, generally now from India and from, let's say, Bangladesh and some other countries, where we source goods from. And even at that point, I've been, in contact with logistics and service providers and following the situation day by day, and looking, how things develop and are actually being forecasted what is going to happen with blank sailings and the challenges that we're going to be faced with, the shortage of equipment and things. And basically, unless I say even with this situation and in any other situation in logistics, you can only how to say, approach a problem or try to think of the solutions when you know what your problem is. Let's say if your goods are ready next week and there are no ships and stuff, let's say there's a blank sailing, or your containers cannot be loaded because the factory is closed. Yeah, there are not so many options. It's always, evaluate the situation and look at, the possibilities that you have. So basically, let's say now the lockdown has been for the past 7 weeks in China, and things are starting to move, and gradually they still have a huge backlog which they have to first resolve. Then they have to look at at the shortages of containers, repositioning of containers around the world to get enough equipment to load things. So I think there's going to be a huge peak and spike in demand in trying to move the goods into Europe. But then we're also going to be faced with, I'm saying things now in a sort of hypothetical way, because I don't know how much goods are waiting here from Europe. They need to go to Asia. But if Europe starts also going into lockdown and stuff like that, it's going to sort of be a domino effect or a circle that is we're blocking each other, in the movement of goods. So when you say generally, how do you approach the supply chain? It's not like, okay, I have a protocol or a formula or approach is this way. You're really faced with the given date, given situation, and the options provided at that moment. If everything is on lockdown, yeah, you can wish for things, but nothing is going to move, Digitally, yes, we can move information and say, okay, we're postponing. Unfortunately, you have to inform clients, suppliers, and stuff like that. But physical movement is going to be a huge challenge.
Absolutely. It's crazy times.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's, but I mean, looking at the future, like I said, previously, how the situation is evolving and stuff like that. Yeah, we have to look really in a sort of somber or really complicated situation in the supply chain world for the next 2 months. And hopefully when we get on top of this, and we at least conquer, the situation, and we get better, let's say, because everybody's saying we're sick and the country is sick and stuff and the economy is sick. If we get better from all of this, then things need to be implemented, I think a lot of people have to think about risk management and the possibilities that maybe these kind of situations will appear in the future, I mean, I think at one moment, a lot of companies, as a lot of shipping companies are taking action, pronouncing blank sailing, shortage of equipment. People have to rethink everything. I think we're going to be entering a new age. There's certainly a different kind of mindset with companies and people that have to face, in logistics world. More working from home, digitalizing, using digital portals, like yourself, which you're working for CoverPort. There are other competitors as well in the market, but we have to really rethink the way we do our business, or let's say a business supply chain, at least sector has to rethink their game scenario.
Absolutely. And what, I suppose, what kind of setup would you need, let's say, if you were to move your operations from the office to home? What are some essential things? I know a lot of the time you need the original bill of lading. Sometimes that can be difficult to digitalize.
True.
Aside from that, what are some challenges you foresee for other logistics managers in moving their operations from an office to home? What are some major things that are potentially blocking that at the moment?
you want to see it for something that's also very interesting. Like I previously said, of course, digitally we can discuss, send information, create bookings online through portals, through emails and stuff like that. But one moment when a lot of suppliers, I think a lot of countries will have to rethink how they develop their, exchange of goods, because the bill of lading is your bill of exchange, the ownership of the goods. A lot of companies in sourcing countries still work with original bill of ladings, and they don't want to move away from this because they're involved with banks. Banks oblige them to get this, because if you issue a seaway bill, you're basically stuck, with actually giving the goods basically in the hands of the buyer, and hoping that he's going to commit and pay for the goods. So I think this stigma or this change can only be changed with a probably new setup and new technology. I've been, how do you say that, really, my mindset and my future thinking of the future has been on blockchain and stuff like that. I mean, we can speak about this point of view. I think in the future, when I believe in it, at least the blockchain will be probably one of the solutions. Maybe it's not going to be the solution, but one of the solutions to basically create trust between different parties, between buyers and shippers, to be able to move goods. And then when you put the original bill of lading basically on the blockchain, and use the blockchain as a sort of transaction system where you use smart contracts to be able to say, oh, I'm buying a container from you, and if you, Corey, you're going to be delivering the goods to Europe. Okay, we put it all on blockchain, and it's put in motion, which cannot be, disrupted and stuff like that, where I have first been credibly checked. They already checked, okay, am I viable? Am I good for it? And you as well. And you're committed to certain things, and you put all these things and the solution into the blockchain. Probably later on, you will create some kind of, totally new concept of doing business. Because nowadays, even with this situation, okay, I'm working from home. Or where does my DHL package with my bill of lading need to go to? It needs to come to me or to the office, and I have to hand over it to the carrier. So, I mean, it's still physical movement, touching of papers and stuff like that. Even with the COVID-19 situation, it creates interaction with human beings and people. And yeah, let's say DHL or some other company like FedEx or UPS stops doing flights from these countries. What are we going to do then? Yeah. We can't fly over. We're not going to be using pigeons or something. So, I mean, it's quite
maybe
it's
we'll
quite challenging.
those ways.
Yeah. The postage pigeon, But I mean, it's quite interesting. I like always to think of the things and possible solutions. But like I said, you cannot create solutions sort of, I'm pulling things out of my pocket, and these are the things you can only evaluate a certain situation and then say, okay, what options do I have? And then you can choose from. Because I mean, trying to create, the secret sauce and formula, that's like really strange. But I believe the blockchain can at least create some kind of reassurance or some kind of trust. If we're in a trusted circle and we're all, parties that know each other, trust each other, and they're sort of, let's say, money-wise deposit. I've been already thinking about these things a few years ago. Let's say everybody puts in a certain amount of money, and this money is used for payments and trades and stuff like that. And you're a verified supplier, verified buyer. Okay, I have a customer, and the thing automatically moves. I'm paying you, you're paying me, and this is sort of automated, which nobody can say, hey, you owe me money. No, you put a contract, you pay me in 15 days, so it goes automatically, and the system knows up front, oh, you're gonna come short, Corey, you're gonna come short, so you better pay up and fill up the system. Otherwise, you can't do any more transactions. Yeah. It sounds quite simple on one side. On the other side, it's, people are thinking, okay, well, what is this technology? Is this really going to be promised? Is it going to be possible by blockchain? So I think even this virus situation, it created a setback in all these things. Even the blockchain, if you're looking at the sector and stuff, the stock market is going down. A lot of investments, it's hitting everybody hard. And let's hope this something is going to be the new trend in the coming years.
Yeah, I think one thing that will push things towards is blockchain and cryptocurrencies and different online smart contracts and things. I think this is going to be a big push towards that as a safeguard to exactly what you're talking about. So say, given that a bill of ladings on a blockchain is probably some time away, what advice can you give to supply chain managers or people who need to move containers, even small business owners that are now having to work from home or maybe can't take public transport to the office? What are some things that they can do now to make the transition easier, given that certain aspects of the job must be done physically?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Interesting question is way of, yeah, it's for me, it's different. I mean, I don't have the solution, and I cannot also get goods in and out of places where the restrictions and stuff like that. But my environment, stuff being in operations for so long and being, able to work with so many companies and following the trends. Like I said, a company like yours, CocoPort, is definitely an online portal where you can probably remotely, easily, or anywhere in the world, log into a portal and go into look and track your shipments, stuff like that. So being digitalizing things and using the tools available for you gives you an advantage, I think, in this position. Will you be able to move the goods? You cannot also promise them the silver bullet that you will be able to resolve every situation, but being able to track shipments and stuff like that, I think people have to turn to modern tools. Like now we're talking to each other via Zoom, and it's like perfect. It's almost like you're in the room, but it's basically, mindset needs to be changed. I think a lot of logistics suppliers or managers in the supply chain and logistics world do need to have a certain mindset change. Be open to new technologies and new other things. The traditional way doesn't always work. Of course, we need to traditionally physically move the goods, but that can be done, by any other player, or your digital logistics provider, or your, old-fashioned traditional sector, which the sector is quite old. It's a bit of, I mean, old in a way. They're old-fashioned. It's the traditional way of working in logistics. People calling each other nowadays, with mails and using chat options, and booking your own containers to portals is giving the power to the person. You're the decision maker. So that's I think an advantage nowadays, if you know how to use the tools, of course.
And do you feel like the kind of physical nature of a lot of elements of the supply chain are what keep a lot of people in the traditional mindset, in that a lot of industries can go totally digital now, but in logistics, as we said, you still need the person on the ground moving the goods.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's that connection to that, and that's keeping people in the traditional mindset still?
Yeah, listen, it's basically, let's say I'm always a futurist in the mindset of stuff like that. I mean, you cannot replace people in all companies. Definitely, you need people to load, offload trucks. I mean, looking at future and stuff like that. Maybe one day some kind of robots or some other machines can help you out. But even not every company can probably afford robots and stuff like that. I think our sector, my sector, is basically you. I would say nowadays, definitely you can say 60-70% digitalization. Other things are physically, movement of goods. You still need to pick, store goods, offload, load containers, trucks, and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, the physical movement part you cannot take away. The only thing that you can do is the administrative and data communication, and it actually logistics is also movement of information, from A to B. So basically that part can be actually digitalized and needs to be optimized in the maximum, and the other part, the physical part, yeah, that still needs to go. It won't change now, and it won't change in the future. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So given the challenges that come with that, maybe you can speak to some of the challenges that you faced, or that you feel like should be addressed in your industry and in your profession. Some challenges you regularly face. They can be either digital, or they can be based off the physical movement of goods. Obviously, right now, getting goods and moving them is particularly challenging given the coronavirus.
Challenge. That's due to the new situation. That is true. But if you look in a traditional, what I've been experiencing these last 15, 16 years where I'm in logistics, I mean, the things that do get stuck and quite, let's say simple. Let's talk about shipments where we have cross trades. That's a certain specific business where actually it's not coming to the importing country, but you're sending goods from country A to country B. So let's say you purchase something in China and you're selling it in North Africa, or you're selling it to the United States. And then when you try to talk to logistics, let's say personnel or people with carrier companies or for logistics service providers, where you need to switch BLs and stuff like that, the communication lacks proactive action. Proactive action is why? Because a lot of people work, or a lot of companies, let's say carriers, have back offices around the world. So first you have time lapse. You have a lapse of time when you send an email in the morning, United States is waking up in the afternoon, and in, let's say, Asia and India are already going to home in the afternoon. So you have always this time difference which affects you. But I mean, that won't change. That's something, that is, we're geographically situated and located in this. But basically what happens is that the team in, let's say, in a country A, let's say here in the Netherlands, if you're working basically in the country where you're situated. So you're sending your paperwork, switching bill of ladings with the carriers and with the logistics personnel. And you ask them simple things, check the update, has the manifest or something else been closed? All the things arise during this process where something stays unresolved. Somebody forgot manually, it's human error, forgot to enter something, close the file, and then you cannot complete your documentation and stuff like that. And sometimes it takes days. And I'm asking, why does it take days? Because a lot of people, I realized, I don't want to judge, but they just send an email. They send, okay, we send an email and we'll send again a reminder. I don't have any new update. I'm a more proactive person. You need to try to resolve these things basically, in a proactive way. Call the person, designated, check what's going on. Of course, you're not the only one in line, but I think this kind of proactiveness needs to be changed. And I saw a lot of stuff, from really high elite logistics providers to, standard, let's say, 5 to 10 operational logistics, let's say, ops teams. I believe sometimes the smaller companies have more passion and more understanding, to deal with the stuff, not because of the specific line, not because I'm a huge IKEA or a Heineken or I don't know, a Samsung, but just basically, the things do have a feeling, of okay, this needs to be tackled. The larger you go the larger you grow in a corporation, the more the corporation comes in layers. And these layers, you're responsible only for a certain thing, and then goes to some other department, to some other back office. So all these things lag in some way of this process, which is frustration and stuff. And I'm not the only one. Let's say there's a dispute with financial, I know a specific carrier, I won't say the name, but there's a dispute, let's say, with some invoicing or something like that. It takes days to resolve. Imagine having a critical shipment abroad where it needs to be discharged and handed over to your client, and somebody says in an office from the carrier, let's say in the country, in the Netherlands here, oh, we have a problem. There's a sort of open invoice because of, I don't know, $10 or something like that, where you paid $3,000. I had situations where because of $10, they're holding up the whole release and stuff of the containers, which is totally crazy. Like I said, maybe in the future, blockchain stuff will definitely challenge these things and change, the way of work.
Awesome. And do you think that that's a challenge that's kind of uniquely felt by small and medium enterprises, or do you?
No way. This is something that's been felt, and you can see forwarders between forwarders, because forwarders book with carriers, business owners. It's an ongoing thing, and it's somehow I got used to it. It's not that like I accept it. It's frustrating, but I've been, I learned a way, to how to deal with it. Where I sometimes proactively act and see. And sometimes I leave it for a day, but if it doesn't get resolved, I try to, mingle in and try to, disrupt their flow. Actually, try to call people. I even sometimes, the way how I try to resolve things, I call the country. Let's say if there's something stuck in the United States, I don't call the office in the Netherlands. I will call the designated person and try to reach somebody from the import department in the States or export department in China, and try to get somebody to say, hey, listen, this case and this bill of lading, this number, what is the issue? And sometimes small, simple things where people don't even look on the backside of a bill of lading or stuff, like they say, oh, it's not signed, we cannot hand it over, but then they photocopied or they had a bad scan and they're going to see that there was a bank release. Things like that happen, and I faced so many things in these 16 years that, like I said, it's human error. We're all human. We make mistakes.
Yeah, but I think you mentioned well that it's kind of like a mindset thing that needs to change in the industry as a whole.
True.
I think what you said about the disruption and technology making a big difference will really lend itself to that. Maybe you can speak a bit more about that, how you see the future of logistics and how, blockchain and different things is going to change the traditional mindset.
Well, honestly said, there's also a mindset in the let's say the people working in logistics and stuff like that. I think once this certain, let's say I'm also in the gender, I'm generation A, Z, we have millennials. I think once the baby boomers go to their pension and go actually, into retirement, that other generations will be more open-minded to the new things and new technologies. And I think that's going to game changer. It doesn't have it's not only the technology. There's so many things existing nowadays, and people are still not using it because they're not comfortable with it, and it's not being, it's not the trend. It's not being cool. But if you look at things that do change, it's change with generations.
Yeah. Okay. So just time needs to lapse. Unfortunately, it seems.
True. Yeah. Yeah. That's my really personal opinion. I think that's gonna definitely change in the coming years due to the generation change.
And what are some of your personal goals, let's say, within the industry and just personally yourself? What are some goals that you in your daily life hope to achieve, and then going forward into the future, what goals would you like to achieve?
Well, I'm personally a big fan of blockchain and stuff like that. I look forward to this technology and these things. I really admire, new things, and especially things that are intriguing and logic. And for a lot of people, some things are, way off the chart in a way, they cannot follow it. They don't understand it. And I'm quite a different person. I like to dig into these things and find out, okay, how does that work? What does it mean? How can you use this? So I like these kind of puzzles. And I think, yeah, looking at these things, I think we're going to be definitely faced in the future with a total different approach to things, especially logistics world, just because of just what happened, what we faced with this at the moment, with this COVID-19 virus. I think definitely logistics world will have a huge and dramatic change in a good way, in digitalizing robotics and stuff like that. I even, admire that there's a few companies nowadays, there are even robots talking to each other in warehouses, moving goods from A to B. This, it's like, it's really intriguing and cool. And I think, of course, this is not for each company. Not every company can have this, unless Amazon starts buying in all the smaller traders and shops, and they're probably becoming the biggest company. I think Amazon in the future will probably deliver food and stuff like this. And, using digital money. I think even digital money, because they're saying nowadays with the COVID-19, paper money is not good because you can, infect other people and the bacteria, and that's true. People are handling money. I think we're entering 2021 because this year is going to be a bad year. It's a supply chain drama. The 2020 is going to be, hell for business and stuff like that. But let's stay safe and clear. But 2021 is the game changer in the digital era, in the industry 4.0. I think a lot of companies are going to look into 3D printing, which I also find interesting. It's going to impact supply chains. Blockchain will come into play because we're trying to resolve these lags and things that have not been changed for years. And yeah, we're going to be faced with a lot of new but interesting things.
So the coronavirus outbreak will kind of be like a burn off, I guess, burning away the dead wood, and afterwards the young, fresh roots and supple plants will start.
Maybe it sounds really ironic and stuff like that, but they say a lot of elderly get affected and stuff like that, which I really hope not, because I also have my parents and everybody has their dearly elderly and stuff like that. I'm just one side that's a bit where I feel a bit yeah, you cannot say discomfort, or you feel at least some hope. It doesn't affect kids. My kids are at the moment 6 and 7. I God help that nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. It's going to be a tragic. It's going to be a painful lesson, and yeah, game changer, I think.
Yeah, there's something kind of poetic in what you said. It seems to disproportionately affect the older generation, and maybe this whole scenario will also affect the old mindset and the old traditional way of doing disproportionately as well. So
yeah,
interesting to draw.
In a sad way, once. Yeah.
And it seems in some ways an unavoidable way, but we'll continue to be safe and make the right decisions, and we can only hope to get through this, as you said, and hopefully 2021, it's a new horizon and a new dawn for the world. I mean, the world goes on, with me and you and your kids and my kids and everything, we'll all pass eventually, and the world continues. So we just hope for better through the adversity.
True, Corey. That's a good one. You stated that really correctly. But yeah, you will need to survive, and go through this, and hopefully, safe and smart. And there's no, like I said, it's so challenging that it's not like, oh, I have a few solutions or scenarios. Yeah. I have certain things in my mind, but I cannot implement them because it's like sort of I always try to think up front, a few steps. But you know, if I was telling people half a year ago, we need to risk management needs to be more, you know, especially what are we going to do? We need to be prepared for certain things. People would say, yeah, you're a doomsday scenario. You're crazy.
Yeah.
But maybe nowadays people are going to think, okay, we need to rethink of these things.
So maybe that's a good way to end things, is to say, you know, your advice going forward after everything that's happened is to be prepared for the future and to realize these things are coming. You know, the inevitable.
True.
You know.
Exactly. Well, open mindset. Also, that things that sometimes can go differently and wrong. This is really bad. I mean, I hope it never repeats itself. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the thing. We hope it never repeats itself, but it's good to prepare in case it ever does, right?
True. Well, like I said, I'm afraid. Of course, afraid of the well-being, you know, for my parents, elderly, even for my kids. There's a certain mindset which I was sort of already aware of, you know, sort of, you know, trying to evaluate the situation and being actually, like I said, already in my life from young age, I had to move because of war to countries and do things, you know, and start over and things. Maybe it's easier for me to accept these things. I think for a lot of people it's going to be quite difficult and a shock.
Yeah, well, I think after this whole thing happens, I think a lot more people will be like you. I think a lot more people will be resilient to the potential things that can happen. You know, it's been a very comfortable life for a lot of people, me included. You know, as a millennial, I haven't seen much adversity or, you know, real kind of challenge on a global scale. So I think for a lot of people
Yeah.
my age and younger, it's a real eye opener to those of us that haven't experienced war. That you know, things can go bad, and there's no guarantee that things stay you know, sunshine forever.
True, but you have to be always positive. I mean, even the things that happen and stuff like that, I don't see it as a let's say I'm luckily alive. My parents, I even had a wife. My wife now, you know, when she was actually she lived actually a lot years in the war in former Yugoslavia. She spent as a child when she was maybe 10 or something. She spent 2 years in the basement. But even nowadays, you know, you don't see that. Some people get affected by these things,
Yeah.
and some people are, you know, full of, you know, life and power and stuff like that, and you have to be positive. I mean, it's quite, you know, you're never going to be the same person or the same thing, but you're going to be definitely more aware and stuff, you know. I think you have to have a survival mode, you know, be human, take care of others, think of others. Like I even talked to you before a few weeks ago saying, Corey, be careful, watch out, we have to do, you know, these certain things. And it's quite I would say I'd rather be wrong than saying, oh, listen, this is going to be bad, you know. And I mean, we're definitely into a roller coaster the next coming weeks. It's
Yeah.
going to be really bad before it gets better.
Yeah. Well, we'll stick together and
yeah, definitely, buddy. Thank you.